Good afternoon and welcome to the fourth of the Unit Record training webinars. We thank you for investing your time in participating in this training session. We acknowledge that this is a very busy time of year and that this is very important information for you. Before we get started, I'd like to cover just a few details. We are in webinar format, which means that the chat box is unavailable to you at this time, and you as the audience are muted through the duration of this program. We do have, however, a Q&A box that is available for your questions, and we encourage you to enter your questions there as we progress through the presentation, and we will attempt to answer those as we go. And we will leave some time at the very end to answer any additional questions you might have. My name is Ann Boyles. I'm the Program Associate for the Student Financial Aid Division of the Washington Student Achievement Council. With us today are Becky Phillips, who is the Financial Aid Product Manager for the State Board of Community and Technical Colleges, IT Systems. Becky, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you're attending. And this is not the last one we will do for the legacy system. We'll be having one more round of unit record next year, and that will be the last for the legacy system. So almost there. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Also with us today is Marla Skelly. She's the Associate Director for Compliance with the Washington Student Achievement Council. Marla, do you want to say hello?
Oh, sure. Good afternoon, everybody. And I just want to say before we start that we so appreciate the time you're taking to spend with us today, but also want to thank you for these last couple of years. We have all been so affected by COVID and our ability to work and do the things that we need to do. So we recognize that this has been a pretty stressful couple of years for everybody. So know that we know and appreciate all the work that you have done for Washington students. So I guess we can get moving on.
Okay, thank you. Just one last item. We will be hiding the video panel for the presenters, and we'll leave that off through the duration of the presentation. We are, however, looking forward to working with you this year and look forward to your questions as we move through this presentation. Marla, let me turn this over to you.
All right, great. Thanks, Ann. So what we want to talk through first is, what is the purpose of the unit record? The unit record is the mechanism by which WASAC gets information from the institutions so that we can provide institutional reports and profiles. It allows us to assess the needs of students, and then with that information to respond to legislators and help them when they start making policy decisions. We use the information that we get from the unit record to inform changes to all state aid programs. The information we had, for example, in the last 2-3 years was really how we got to the Washington College Grant and the entitlement program. So we do use that information. The other thing that happens as a result of the unit record is that we are able to help institutions by responding to requests for data requests that you might get that come to WASAC. So we're able to respond in an ad hoc basis to to our partners, to you as institutions. So these are all things that we do with the unit record. The unit record also gives us a centralized data repository, which is really important to us because we're able to look at the data over time and see how things have changed. So what's the timeline? We know it comes fast. First, the unit record manual is available electronically at the wasac.wa.gov/unit-record URL. And if you haven't already, we would really like you to take a look at this and familiarize with it so you can go forward with the unit record. The unit record report opened on August 9th, and we have actually received our first completed report. Woohoo! So we would encourage all of you to take a look at that and complete them as soon as you're able. It gives us time to do the work we need to do and to contact you all if we have questions about the information that you've provided. Finalized reports are due October 11th. That doesn't mean you need to wait until October 11th. We will accept them anytime from now through October 11th. That gives me and Ann October and November time to analyze the information that's been submitted and ensure that the data is correct. In December, that's when we report to the policymakers from the requests they make, our standard reports, things like that. But that's when we like to get the reports to them. It doesn't always happen, but that is our timeline. And then in January of 2022, the institutional profiles will be available to the institutions. So the manual is broken down into 5 sections, basically. We have the introduction, which includes the overview, purpose, changes, and timeline. And this actually is a good place to start because it gives you information, succinct information that you can just take a look at. The important information, changes, especially that might have happened from last year to this year. Chapter 1 is general instructions, and Chapter 2, data definitions. Chapter 3 is the reporting application user's guide, and then the appendices are probably the most important part of the manual. This is where you can find the layout formats, layouts for your headers, the information that we need and help in putting those together. So let's talk about those appendices. Appendix A is the need-based and non-need-based program recipients to report. This basically helps you identify those students for whom you need to give information. Appendix B is the record layout, the file format, and valid inputs. Appendix C is the system edits that prevent file upload and import. So these are important for the edits to make sure that if you do run into a problem, you want to make sure that you have looked at those system edits and fixed whatever might be a problem. Appendix D is a quick lookup by financial aid program, and Appendix E is a quick lookup by unit record report field name. So this isn't new to a lot of you, but we do have some new financial aid people. So we want to review the CSV file and submitting that. In order to upload information to WASAC, you have to put your information either in a CSV file or manually enter, and putting information in a file is a quicker way to do it. We want you to report only students who receive financial aid based on the 2021 FAFSA or WASFA. And as a reminder, the WASFA is the Washington Application for State Financial Assistance. This is the application that students who are not eligible for federal aid, or who for some reason make a decision not to complete the FAFSA. They may complete the WASFA, but again, we want to stress that students who complete the WASFA are only considered for state financial aid, no federal financial aid. You need to review the field definitions in Chapter 2 of the manual and the record layout in appendices B and C to determine the valid field in content. We do have a sample CSV format on the website, and we want to make note that the layout has significant changes for the 2021 year.
Hi, this is Becky. I'm going to talk about the legacy system process for unit record. Some of you are very familiar with it, although you just do it once a year. So it's good to have a refresher. There is an HPUX batch job called SM9738J that you will run to produce the CSV file. And that file will include students who are receiving financial aid during the 2020-21 year. It includes the header row. And we are incorporating all the additional fields that are required for this year. So you'll see some new fields if you look at your file. And there will be more information about those new fields in the manual when that's available. And just to let you know that my team works with WASAC team to ensure that the file is in the correct format and passes portal file edits. So when you start running that and then you're ready to upload that to the portal, it should be pretty good. Marla?
Thank you. Becky, here we go with reporting requirements. So in determining which students to report, as I stated earlier, we want you to report all need-based recipients. And those are the folks who completed the 2021 FAFSA or WASFA. And need-based really means that they were required to complete the financial aid applications. Need-based aid recipients for other programs where the FAFSA or WASFA may or may not be available. And then non-need-based federal loan recipients. So those students who received the federal direct unsubsidized loans, federal Parent Plus loans, and federal Grad Plus loans. Our intention is to identify students in term-by-term reporting. So we don't ask for an aggregate of the year. We do ask for each term's information. And so we're capturing all financial aid dispersed in the unit record report. Report for this year is based on the 2021 FAFSA or WASFA. And for the next year, it's based on the 21-22 FAFSA or WASFA. So we're looking right now at the 2021 information, and that's what you will be submitting. Becky?
Okay, our friend job, the SM9738J, does select the 2020-21 need-based recipients and also the non-need-based federal loan recipients that you awarded and dispersed in 2020, 2021. I don't know why I'm having a hard time with that year. So back to you, Marla.
Thanks, Becky. It is hard to say. So here's a list of the need-based recipient fields required. So these are the programs that need to be reported. And you can read this as well as I, but I do have a couple of notes that I want to give you on these, primarily around the teacher shortage programs. So teacher shortage conditional grant required the FAFSA or WASFA and was reported under the teacher conditional scholarship programs for 2019-20. The teacher shortage conditional grant is not to be confused with the student teaching grant. The student teaching grant was reported under other state funded gift assistance until 2017-18. It was not funded in 2018-19, but it's been reported under the teacher grant program since 2019-20, where it will continue to be reported in the 2021 year. Other programs that need to be reported, you can see the list here as well as I. The reason we need all of this information, and sometimes we get asked, why do you need my need-based gift aid? And it's so that we get a complete picture of the state aid programs. And this is the only way that we can get that. Federal non-need-based loan recipients need to be reported. So it's those students who receive only the direct unsubsidized loan, federal parent plus loan, federal grad plus loan. We usually get, we'll have dependent students who don't want to provide their parental information. So they get those rejected SARs and, or the rejected ISERs, and they may only get the unsubsidized loan, but those are the kinds of things that you need to report to us. Becky?
Okay, both need-based awards and non-need-based federal loans have separate processing table entries in FAM. All are on the CIS/WAT processing table. And as mentioned, there will be some new categories you'll need to add to your table, such as the teacher conditional shortage scholarship. I may not have that one exactly right, but those will be included in the unit record documentation when it's available. Marla?
Thank you. For the Basic Food Employment and Training Program, or BFET as it's referred to, we really would like you to receive information on these for those students who receive BFET. As long as it's easy to get out of your system, we want it reported. And BFET is generally reported as not even generally, it's reported as workforce training funds. So report them if you are able to. Becky?
Most of you, I think all of you out there have a separate award code for your BFET award. Might have multiple codes. So those would go in the WCC 150 workforce training entry on the CIS WAT processing table. So it gets reported under the correct column in the CSV file. Marla?
So changes for the 2021 unit record report portal. And I mentioned earlier the teacher conditional scholarship program. There have been some changes. Last year, there was one category for the teacher conditional scholarship programs. And we have now split those out into 3 programs. So you will see categories for the alternative routes to teaching, pipeline for paraeducators, and the teacher shortage conditional scholarship. They all have their own category now. The student teaching grant program continues to be reported in the teacher grant programs category. So that's a big change for us. Additional changes, there are some new fields to the CSV header file record layout. We added a rejected ISER WASFA field, and Anne will talk more about that in her section. The National Guard grant, which is a new program. And just as a note here, the National Guard grant payment system is in process of being implemented in the portal this summer. They're hoping to have it in place by the end of September. So it's going to be, it will either be complete or not prior to the time you complete the unit record. If it's not completed, then you may experience overridable edits for the program until the system has been fully implemented and past payment data has been uploaded into the system. It's just one of those complicated programs that's new, and we're trying to get it added to the portal. The alternative routes for teaching certification has been added to the header, pipeline for paraeducators, teacher shortage conditional scholarship, and we have added the VA benefits. And one of the reasons we added the VA benefits was in the past, you would get a call from us periodically from your end that said, gee, why is your other state funded aid so high? And that's because VA benefits went into this other state aid category. And so we made the decision this year that if you report VA benefits, that we would like you to report them in a separate category as opposed to the other state aid. So this is just so that it will mitigate calls that we make to you, and it will help us quickly identify why there are high values in those fields. I mentioned that because there are changes to the teacher conditional scholarship programs, that particular field has been deleted from the header file. It's not needed anymore. And then you can refer to page III in the manual for additional details on those changes. And, you know, basically we're looking for consistency in other final reporting. So based on your final interim with Seesaw, that's really what we look at when we compare data. And so the closer the information you submit on the unit record is to what you've submitted on Seesaw, and we know there are changes, the better it is for all of us. Becky?
Thank you, Marla. The required changes to the 2021 CSV file are being added to SM 9738J. Will be giving it a thorough testing. Actually, I've already started testing it and sent it back to the programmers saying you gotta tighten that thing up or you have the wrong thing in the wrong spot. So by the time it's implemented later this month, it should be working real well for you and have everything in the right spot in the CSV file. As I've mentioned, there will be additional categories or buckets added to the CIS WAT processing table in FAM. Actually, you'll need to add those in prior to when you start preparing for running SM 9738J. And details on these new entries will be included in the unit record reporting manual when it's available later this month. Marla?
So we have a couple of early announcements. One of them is really exciting for me and Ann, and hopefully you all. These will be changes to the 21-22 unit record report. We have learned that there will be a WASOS graduate scholarship program, which will be reportable in 21-22. God, I can't believe we're even talking about that. And then the portal, unit record portal, is undergoing an overhaul to a new 3.0 version for the 21-22 reporting cycle. This is really exciting to us because the unit record the current program is a little antiquated, and we get to do this update and we're pretty excited about it. But what we're hoping is that there may be some of you who are interested in participating in a work group. We're hoping that it won't take tons of time, but we really want institutional input to see what kinds of things you might be looking for to help us test when it comes time, and just make it as good as it can be. So Anne has created a survey that will be sent out, and once we get that back, it'll at least start the ball rolling. But if any of you out there are interested in participating in a work group, let me know. We don't want it to be too labor intensive, but it really depends on the kind of changes we're looking at and what kind of input we get from you. So please reach out to me or Ann, and we'll be putting that together in the coming weeks. Becky?
Thank you, Marla. Just some other legacy news about the 21-22 reporting. As I had mentioned, the 21-22 unit record report will be the last reporting using the legacy process SM9738J. So next year, that's it. It will be used by Deployment Group 5 and Deployment Group 6 colleges. Those of you in Deployment Group 4 who are probably on the call, you'll be reporting through PeopleSoft system for 21-22. And of course, we will be adding the required changes to the CSV file next year. And if there are any new system award codes and FAPCs, those will be added if needed. So we'll keep on top of this throughout the year. Marla?
So here are the valid input ranges for the funds in the 2021 academic year. And you can see this as well as I, but basically we move from old values to new values to accommodate any increases in award totals. So Pell Grants increased. We've input the Washington College grant. All of those changes have been inputted, so you should not have issues. If your awards exceed what our values are, then you're going to get an edit. Keep in mind that the Washington College grant apprenticeships, so there you may have some of those awards out there, won't be separately reported for 2021. So that includes funds in the Washington College grant category. So if you have them, you will, if you have a WCG apprenticeship, you'll report them in the WCG category.
And for the CTC system, legacy system, the limits for these categories will be increased to the new limits in the unit record program. So by the time you run that and get through the edits created by SM9738J, then you shouldn't have any issue uploading to the portal. Marla?
For all financial aid recipients, the following needs to be reported. Report financial aid for each of the 5 terms. Report enrollment status for each of the 5 terms. And report non-need-based aid received for all need-based recipients. The required fields you can read, but these really have not changed. We have social security number, first name, last name, gender. Are they a state resident? Year in school. This is a new field, rejected ISER or WASFA. Enrollment status per term and financial aid per term, even if it's 0. We're looking for the entire resource package. The CSV file requires a header row. We've said that a couple of times. It's important, and there is a sample available. The financial aid reported for each of the 5 terms is as follows. Summer 1, if you use it, it's primarily for the leader or header awards. Fall, winter for quarter schools. In this case, semester schools would report winter with a 0. Spring and summer 2, which is primarily for trailer awards. Clock hour schools may have awards for all 5 terms. When should you include summer in your aid in your reporting? Chapter 2 of the manual has detailed information. So if summer, you need to report summer, you should take a look at that. Summer aid reported amounts are received based on the 2021 FAFSA or WASFA. So summer aid usually is reported if you're a trail term in the 2021 FAFSA. So in general, leader header schools to report summer 1 aid and would report summer 2 as 0. Trailer schools would report summer aid as summer 2 and and report summer 1 is 0. So we're basically asking you to report all 5 terms, but only a valid number in the summer that you use for your institution. Clock hour schools are an exception, and they may report aid for both summer terms. And if a recipient is enrolled for more than 1 term in the same summer, so if you have many terms or something along of that nature, report the total amount received and the enrollment status as 1 enrollment term. So you may have 2 6-week mini sessions, but we really want you to report them, all that information as 1. Becky?
Okay, just kind of a reminder of how the legacy process works. Included awards that you've entered for the C011 session are placed in the summer 1 location in the CSV file. And then included awards in you've awarded in C015 are placed in the summer 2 location in the CSV file. Marla?
Thank you. This slide lists the fields that are also to be reported in the 2021 FAFSA and WASFA for the filers. We need the ICER or WASFA transaction number. If it's a rejected ICER or WASFA, marital status, are they dependent? What's the family size, number in college, family income, expected family contribution, cost of attendance, need duration, and need amount. Becky?
Just wanted to let everyone know that the required fields for the 2021 FAFSA and WASFA filers will be included in the CSV file. As mentioned before, one of the new fields is the rejected ICER WASFA. And what we are doing in the programming to determine that is if the student has a status of OV on the financial aid tab. And that's the same that's used to identify rejected ICERs for FISAP reporting. So that shouldn't be any issue to carry that on. So rejected ICERs, if you are awarding reported awards for students with rejected ICER, it will indicate that in that new field in the CSV file if the student status on the financial aid tab is an OV. Hope that makes sense. There'll be more information about that in the manual when that's issued. Back to you, Marla.
Thanks, Becky. So there's some special notes we want to stress about some of the selected fields. For Social Security numbers, duplicates are not accepted. Files containing duplicate SSNs will not upload. And basically, Social Security numbers have to match between the unit record and Seesaw. If you discover any discrepancies, you'll need to contact us to correct links to ensure data history is correct. And you'll more than likely work with Anne to resolve these issues, and she'll talk more about that in her section. Invalid Social Security sequences are flagged. Don't use dummy numbers. Don't use all A's, all zeros, all nines. Excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. These will not load. The Social Security numbers of Washington College Grant and College Brown Scholarship recipients are compared to the SSNs reported in the WCG CBS Seesaw records. So there's a lot going on when you upload your unit record. The Social Security numbers of passport to college recipients will be compared to the recipient portal records. And discrepancies will show on edit reports. And that's the best place to look for the issues that you may have. A year in school is required for all recipients. Report the status of the beginning of the term of the recipient's last financial aid disbursement for the 2021 year. So you can read these as well as I. This is something that you don't want to trust to the FAFSA, students will call themselves a graduate student because they graduated from high school. You've all seen that. The option 8 is used for non-matriculated students. So this may be used for, say, Running Start or special students or something like that. Other year in school considerations. Don't automatically use the year in school reported on the FAFSA or WASFA. Report the highest year in school for which the student attended when the student's financial aid was dispersed. So if they changed grade levels mid-year, then and they had aid dispersed in that the term that they changed grade levels, that's the year in school you'll report. And as I said, code 8 or other is used to report need-based aid for Running Start or other students who have not yet graduated from high school. Becky?
Okay, in the legacy system, there is an HPUX batch job that you will run as part of the steps for unit record. It's SM 9146J, and its sole purpose is to post the grade level to FAM, to the financial aid tab. And it is recommended, strongly encouraged, it's on the list that you do this before you run SM 9738J to produce the unit record file, unit record report file. This job for colleges that are on the legacy system, still on legacy, looks at the SM database for credits earned, transferred in credits, and so on. And then it also will look at the clone database for colleges in dual processing. And this database includes much the same information that is in SMS and used for dual processing. So looking in 2 spots depending on your status. Next slide, please. Great. The correct value will be posted in the year in school field on the financial aid tab in FAM, except for Running Start students. As mentioned, this will post a value there, but that may not be accurate for any Running Start students. You will need to manually enter 8 into the year of school field on the financial aid tab. Then once those are posted, when you do run SM 9738J job, it will use that value posted to the year in school field on the financial aid tab in FAM. Marla?
For family information on family size, generally, this is reported from the FAFSA or WASFA. It must be 2 or higher for dependent students and must be 1 or higher for independent students. And if that independent student is married, the number must be 2 or higher. For number in college, it must be 1 or higher, and it cannot exceed the family size. If parents' enrollment in college should not, let me back up. Parents' enrollment in college should not be included unless it was a professional judgment that added that parent to the FAFSA or WASFA. These data elements should align across the unit record, CSAW, and the FAFSA and WASFA information. We do compare against those. For family income, we want you to report the family income, taxable and untaxed, based on a review of the 2021 FAFSA or WASFA. Usually it's going to be the 2018 income from that FAFSA or WASFA. But if you used a professional judgment to adjust the student's information, you need to report that income. If you complete a professional judgment, make sure that you submit those changes through the federal processor or through WASFA and update your CSAW record. If they don't match, we have to go back to you and say, wait a minute, why doesn't this match? So if you make a professional judgment or a change that affects the student's income and EFC and all that, then make sure you send it through the processor. Report integers without dollar signs or cents. And this field, the family income field, is the only place where negative numbers can be used. And we would like you to use the negative numbers. If they reported a negative family income, put it in the unit record. That's what we want. It gives us better reporting. And last year, as an example, Anna and I had to go in and adjust all of those income that you reported as 0, but where the income really was negative. So it's okay to use negative in this context. Becky, over to you.
Okay, the legacy process. If the student is dependent, the parent's AGI and untaxed income is reported. If the student is independent, the student's AGI and untaxed income is reported. And SM 9738J will include negative income amounts in the CSV file, because I've seen it. It does it. Marla?
When you report the expected family contribution, we want you to use federal methodology. That calculation is produced by the U.S. Department of Education based on the 2021 FAFSA or based on the WASFA EFC. There are some institutions that use institutional methodology for their institutional aid, and they may get a different EFC, but for our purposes, we want federal methodology. The EFC may be adjusted if you complete a professional judgment, and the EFC should reflect the number of months that were reported in need duration. The EFC needs to match that need duration that you're reporting in order so there's no conflict. Most campuses use several student budgets to reflect changes in living expenses. So you can have your on, off campus, with parent, independent, those kinds of things. Report the student budget amount related to your need amount. And that cost of attendance should be based on the number of months reported in need duration. So the COA, need duration, and EFC must be the same number of months. Here's your familiar equation. Cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution equals that need amount. And we want you to base all three numbers on the number of months reported in the need duration. For need amount, report the amount used in the disbursement of aid. Report need amount as 0 or higher. Here you do not report negative values. Becky?
Okay, our friend SM 9738 will generate an error message if the need amount is not the cost of attendance minus the combined student and parent contribution. If that does show up, it will show up on several of the reports generated by SM 9738 with an error message as of need amount invalid. So that's something to look for. It's probably more uncommon, but it could happen, and we'd be happy to help you determine what's going on with that particular record. Marla?
So on need duration, we want you to report based on the number of months for which the need amount and cost of attendance were reported. And normally those are integers from 1 to 12. And generally, and usually I would say that for traditional schools, you're using 9 as your duration. And so if you do have that 9-month setup and say the student leaves after 1 term, you're not required to recalculate everything to a 3-month duration. You can, but it's not required. But if you do adjust it, all student budget components must be adjusted. We want it consistent for the same period of time if that's what's required. This is just a slide that puts what term enrollment status equates to in the different areas. So full-time is usually credits of 12 or more, clock hours of 300 or more, and our unit record codes, 1 is full-time. It denotes full-time. So just to make sure that you're reporting the appropriate unit record codes for what the graduate enrollment status is. And typically clock hours term awards are for full-time enrollment status, except in the final term, and that final term may be paid for part-time enrollment status unless the student's out of QER. This is a slide that just gives approximate term date ranges for clock hour institutions. Yours may look similar, they may be a little different, but generally you've got summer 1 from July through mid-September, fall September through November, winter the end of November to February, early February, spring February through mid-April, and then summer to April, mid-April through June 30. For the Washington College grant, college-bound scholarship and passport to college, you want to report the final awards and enrollment levels of students at the time of disbursement. The unit record reporting tool checks against all seesaw records. This is where you'll review the WCG, CBS, and passport differences report to verify all recipients and make sure that all the awards are correctly reported. This will really help you in identifying those payments that were discrepant, and you need to fix those. Reporting tuition waiver dollars for WCG and CBS recipients is required for the 2021 academic year. It gives us an accurate representation of all forms of assistance that needy students are receiving. So we want you to include the full assessed tuition and fee amounts in each student's cost of attendance to reflect tuition prior to the application of waivers. And then you would report waivers as a financial aid resource in the appropriate field, which would either be need-based institutional gift aid or non-need-based institutional gift aid, whatever you consider that tuition waiver to be. State work study, those of you that participate in the state work study program know it's been challenging this last year and a half. We still want you to report on campus and off-campus employment separately if you had it. Report the student's total gross earnings, including employer match or institutional share, and include summer employment. Report either actual gross earnings based on monthly cutoff dates or institutional payroll dates. Average gross term earnings over the academic year for all terms student was enrolled at least half time. One of the questions that we've been asked is, with the the state work study grant being allowed to use some of those funds as grants, how do you report those? You report them under the on-campus, and of course they don't have a match because it is the value of the grant itself. So we still want it reported. We did not require a separate field for reporting on unit record. For institutional gift aid, you're going to report it as either need-based institutional gift aid, and if you require the FAFSA or the WASFA, report it as need-based. Non-need-based institutional gift aid would be all institutional grants, scholarships, or waivers awarded without regard to the FAFSA or WASFA. There are also other state-funded gift assistance for which there is not a separate category. And those examples are the American Indian Endowed Scholarship, Early Achievers, and you can read these as well as I. It does look like in 21-22, we're going to be seeing that Washington Award for Vocational Excellence again. It's in the process of, apparently we got money to reinstate it. So hopefully there will be, in the next few weeks, some information about the waive. But it's something that we thought went away, and it came back. Becky?
Okay, a complete list of the aid categories and corresponding processing table entries will be included in the legacy unit record documentation. And I will send a notice out to the DERF aid list when the documentation is available and when the 2021 SM 9738J is available. I'm hoping that will be out by the end of this month. As I've mentioned, I'm in the process of testing and fine tuning it, so it is in good form when it does go out to you. And I'll send notice about that at that time. Marla?
Thanks. Now we get to talk about edits. So the reason we use edits and need edits is that they help ensure data quality. For those edits where it doesn't necessarily affect the outcome, we call those softer non-need edits. So you might get them for non-need based federal loans. Those aren't things that necessarily have to change. It's just a heads up. FAFSA related edits are also softer for students not receiving FAFSA or WASFA required aid types, because they usually don't affect the total outcome. There are some edits that prevent the file upload, and you can see what the specific edits in Appendix C, page 47 in the manual. But some examples of errors that prevent the upload: you've got your header row is missing or invalid. You've been hearing a lot about how important that header row is. Duplicate social security numbers, invalid codes if those codes don't match, blanks reported in required fields, and beginning in the 2021 year, the new rejected ISER WASFA field is a required field. There are 12 edits that prevent upload. Make sure you review those in the manual so that you're aware of how information will affect those edits. Non-overridable edits are those, exactly what it says, they're not overridable. You want to refer to Appendix C, page 48 through 50 in the manual. And examples are: the total aid reported is 0. You have a non-resident with a Washington College grant or other state aid. The number in college is greater than family size. Or there's no valid institutional state work study allocation in the portal and you've reported state work study expenditures. If the file upload worked, but then secondary edits run, these will require you to correct the student record before you can resubmit. Overridable edit examples are also in Appendix C, pages 48 to 50. If your need amount is 0 with need-based aid, the budget changed with dropped credits, for example. You're in school for aid type. The federal grad plus loan usually throws this edit, and it's that the student was an undergrad and then changed mid-year to a graduate student in the following term. So you'll get an overridable edit. The date of birth is outside the normal range, either too early or too late. And the cost of attendance minus expected family contribution, which is calculated by the edit program, does not equal the need amount reported by the college. Becky?
Well, okay, the edits in the legacy program SM 9738J follow WASAC's edits. Students with errors on SM 9738J reports are included in the CSV file, except for students whose award amounts are 0, and students who have awards that aren't entered in a processing table entry. In other words, their awards haven't been assigned a category. So there's no way for the process to know what column that information needs to go to in the CSV file. And there are 3 reports produced by SM 9738J. The one that has the errors on it, they all, well, the A and the C report have errors on it, but the C report, you can optionally list students by error message or error messages by student. So you can see which way works better for you so that you can tackle those particular errors, and so you can present the cleanest data possible. Marla?
Thanks, Becky. Just some reminders. Keep your override comments brief, but with enough detail to directly explain the edit response. We don't know your shorthand, so it needs to be enough of an explanation that we can figure it out. Report family income using the WCG income calculation, not the total federal, not federal total income field from the FAFSA. And it should match the income reported in your Seesaw student record for 2021. Keep in mind that when you're calculating family income for a dependent student, that you count the parent's adjusted gross income and non-taxable income. You do not include the student's income. Conversely, when you're calculating family income for an independent student, count the student's AGI and non-taxable income and that of the spouse if that student is married. For both independent and dependent students, use the sum of all taxable plus non-taxable income if the AGI is not present. So that would be for if the parent or student is a non-tax filer. A couple of other reminders on this is that child support income must be excluded from income calculations for less than half-time students, but not from other enrollment categories. So we treat less than half-time differently. Veterans benefits are treated in the same manner as for the purpose of eligibility for Title IV financial aid. Report an adjusted expected family contribution according to need duration if the student attended less than full-time, full year, if that's your institution's standard practice to do so. Need, COA, and duration must all be consistent. Report all known race categories for each student, even where Hispanic origin is marked Y. This eliminates gaps in our research data, and it's something that we are asked about frequently. Becky?
Okay, at this time, I just wanted to kind of go over the basic steps to how you can prepare for running the unit record report. First, you would reconcile your awards with the expenditure data. You want to make sure what's in FAM is what was expended or what was dispersed to the student. And this information, this is high level. There's more detail in the unit record manual when that's available. Second is to run the job to post the year in school to the financial aid tab. And again, legacy colleges, that process looks at SMS data. Colleges in dual processing will look at PeopleSoft data or data that's come over from the PeopleSoft system. You'll run a job to update the academic hours on the academic tab. Run a job to update residency status from SMS or from, if you're in dual processing, I need to add that, from PeopleSoft. Then there's a Data Express procedure to run to determine if award code was used during the 2021 year. Next slide, Anne. Thank you. Then update the CIS WAT processing table in FAM. Run schedule SM9738J in preliminary mode, review the reports and correct errors, then run SM9738J in final mode if ready to generate final reports and the CSV file. You will download the CSV file to a local network drive using HPUX screen SM9724. Then you would upload the CSV file to the portal. And one
That
more.
just sounds so easy.
Well, at high level, it does sound easy, but I know there's a lot of detail. Those cleaning up the errors is what probably takes a little more time than what we are talking about here.
So tips and best practices. Upload your CSV file early. Don't wait for the deadline. We understand that stuff happens and the Phys app is prior to our deadline, but it's really important that we get the information in time. Review your 2021 unit record manual and training materials and test upload using the portal training environment. And that URL is portaltraining.wasac.wa.gov. But keep in mind that if you use and upload information into the training environment, it will clear out overnight. So whatever training you want to do, make sure you complete it in the same day or you'll have to start over again. Use the unit record informational reports to check for consistency and validity. CTCs, we want you to review your SBCTC 2021 unit record report manual when it's available. And Becky will let you know when that happens. And contact WASAC with questions or problems that haven't been addressed or that you see addressed in the WASAC unit record manual, or if you have confusion or need some clarification. Ann and I are here to help you as best we can. One note is that if you have the Fortress unit URL marked for the portal, either training portal or regular portal, that no longer will redirect from the fortress.wa.gov to the updated URL. So make sure that you change your bookmarks. Notices will be sent to when the session has been posted to the web and is available for you to share with others if you're interested or if you want to share it with others for training. Are there any questions from anybody? Please use your question and answer if you have something you'd like to ask. I don't see anything, Ann.
Okie dokie, I don't see anything either on this end. It looks like it is now my turn. All righty. Most of you are familiar with this landing page. There are a couple of ways to get to the unit record portal, and the direct address is shown at the top of the screen, portal.wasac.wa.gov. There are other ways to get there from the main agency website. The main agency website is at wasac.wa.gov, and along the top menu bar you'll see an item called administration. If you click on that, the portal is the first option below that menu item, and click on that and it'll shoot you right over here to this page. Once you're here, you need to log into the portal itself, and there are a couple of ways to get to the unit record report. The first way is to go through this generic login, which is at the top right hand portion of the screen. You end up adding your login ID, which is your email address, and your password, and it will take you to the main portal screen where you would then select the unit record as the program you want to work in. This option here at the top is convenient if you're also working in other items, other programs in the portal, and will be perhaps working on the unit record is one of several things that you're going to be doing that day. In order to get directly to the unit record report, you would click on this tab under the financial administrators column, and that will take you directly to the welcome page in the unit record. If you go through the generic login, click on your home, go over to programs, and here you will see a drop down of all of the programs that you may be authorized to work in. Click on the unit record report, and it will take you to this welcome page if it's the first time that you're going into the unit record report for the year. If you have already uploaded a file, it will take you to whatever your current step is, whether it's ready to begin, in progress, or submitted. But on first time login for the year, click on Proceed to Upload, and it will take you to this upload page. Click on the Browse button, search your PC or laptop for the CSV file that you wish to upload, and then click the upload. If you are actually adding records manually, you can do so by clicking this Add Students Manually button. If you have a large file, you'll see a processing bar, and it will tell you where in the process you are in terms of the file upload. This only appears if you have a rather large file. If you have a smaller file, it zips by so quickly that you don't see it. If your file contains some critical errors and does not upload the file, you'll know that immediately. You will receive this error message, and it will list the row number of the error that is preventing upload, as well as the field name. This example only shows the one error, but if you have multiple errors, a good number of them will be listed. If there's a huge number of them, it may not list them all, but your first clue would be to discard that file and correct your error in your master file and re-upload. But this does give you a sense of what type of edit is being experienced by your file. Hopefully it will have a succinct description of that field error, and you'll be able to identify, maybe it's a whole column that is reported off and creates that critical error. But that should be a helpful item to you to identify what needs to be corrected in your master file. If, on the other hand, you're uploading a file and you recognize all of a sudden that you may have selected the wrong file, you can interrupt that upload process. There is a button that says Discard Upload. So it'll totally interrupt that file upload and delete the file, where you can then re-enter that browse situation, find the correct file, and upload that. Once the file upload is complete, you'll see a summary page, and take a quick look at this. Make sure that the number of student records appears to be valid according to your understanding of how many records you were reporting this year. And there will also be a breakdown of their enrollment statuses, class statuses. You'll only see the class statuses for your population. In other words, if you only have freshman, sophomore, you won't see any of these other categories. If everything looks correct, go ahead and click Proceed to Edits. Otherwise, you have another opportunity to discard that upload. Uploading your file can take a while. as long as your file is still in the upload process, you will see this refresh button. You can click it and it will bring up additional edits that may need to be addressed. Once this refresh button disappears, you know that your entire file has been uploaded and the edit list is complete. You can sort your edit list in many different ways. At the top, there is a drop down where you can select from the type of file category that is available to you. And these are actually each of those categories here. So you can click on one of these and search your file that way as well. This may be the fastest way at the top if you have a specific way you like to address your records. I want to point out here this little stop sign icon under the overridable column. That is your indicator of a non-overridable error or edit. And what that means is that particular edit does need to be corrected. You cannot place an override comment in order to bypass that particular edit. And you see here, whenever an edit is overridden, the edit error itself changes color so that you can see that you've addressed it, as well as this status over here. In order to correct any of these edits or address the override, click on the Social Security number off to the left-hand side. It will be highlighted and underlined so that it, is active for you to address that particular record. That will open that student's record, and you'll see all of the edits for that particular record at the top left-hand side under this errors category. All of them will be in red. If they are overridable, you will see override button off to the right-hand side. If they are non-overridable, you'll see that same stop sign icon. And you would move through each of these edits and address them. And as you correct and save them, you're able to move forward. If you are going to make a correction, you would edit directly into whatever field or category you're making the adjustment. If, on the other hand, you believe that the information that you have in that file is correct already, you have an opportunity to explain to us why that is by clicking this override button. Before you exit a student's record, be sure that you click this save button at the bottom. Otherwise, it will not retain any of the corrections or changes that you've made. If you click the override button, a pop-up box will appear, and you can then enter your comment or explanatory descriptor there. Make sure that you click save. As soon as you've saved it, you'll notice that the edit will gray out, and it will also indicate that it has been overridden. If you want to see what comment you put in there, just to double check, you can hover your cursor over this little blue icon, and a yellow pop-up box will appear over it, and you can then read and verify that you place the appropriate comment in there. Once you have addressed all of your edits and they've all turned green or disappeared for corrections, you can then click to continue, which will move you forward in the process. The next item that you'll see is the differences reports. And currently there are 3 programs that will appear there: Washington College Grant, College Bound Scholarship, and Passport to College. You'll notice that the missing unserved tab no longer appears because we are no longer dealing with that. These are the 3 programs that you would need to address, and be sure that you check each of these tabs. If the edit has a yes in this override requested column, that means that you have already addressed that with an override. You can double check that override comment, like once again, by hovering over this little blue icon. But this is an indicator that you have already taken care of that particular edit. On the other hand, if there is a blank across from that student's name, that is an indicator of an unaddressed edit. And that means that you do need to make some accommodation to address or correct that record. In this particular example, there is nothing shown in the unit record, which to me means that there is something in Seesaw that indicates funds were dispersed for that student, but there is no unit record for that individual. Because there is no highlighted amount in here, you're unable to fix this record directly from this tab. And in that situation, you would go to the search screen and, excuse me, let me back up. You would then go to the return to edit list and then select add a record. If on the other hand, there's something in both of these columns, if you click on this WASAC WCG, that will take you to the Seesaw record to see what you actually have entered into Seesaw. And then if there's a unit record amount here, you can click that, and then that will open up the unit record so that you can make a correction, or if there is no override button on that particular record, you would need to come back to this screen and send us an email to alert us to what needs to happen here. We recommend, if you have many edits in this chart, that you download them to a CSV so you can take a look at them and address the issues by going back into the individual records all at once, rather than going back and forth from line to line. So be sure that you do all 3 tabs. If you need to search for a record in order to edit it, you go back up to the menu bar at the top of your screen, select your unit record, and this search button should be one of your options. If you click that, it will open up the student record, and you can make a correction or edit the comment for the override at that point. On the other hand, as I said, if the issue is that a unit record is missing for a student where there is a Seesaw record, you can add the record for that individual by coming back to this main edits page and clicking add a new unit record to the report. That will open up a blank unit record, and there are 2 tabs that need to be fully completed. One is the student demographics and need tab, and the other one is the student aid tab. And on this particular demographics screen, you'll see this rejected ICER and WASFA drop down. And the reason for this is, as you know, we've asked for ICER and WASFA numbers for all of the student records that are submitted in the unit record. That allows us during the review process to check the specific FAFSA or WASFA that was used to award that student, and double check if we have questions about any of this demographic information, whether it's family size, number in college, total family income, EFC, any of those things. However, in the case, there are two cases where perhaps there isn't an ICER or WASFA number that's available. And one of those cases would be if the student has no need-based aid, or a FAFSA is not required for the aid that the student received. And in that case, you would put a Y here, which would indicate to us there is going to be a blank in this ICER WASFA field, and that will allow you to bypass the edit for that, or correct the edit for that if it's being done after the fact, once your unit record has been submitted and there's an edit in that area. The other situation is if the student has received only federal loans because they only have rejected ICERs or WASFAs. In that case, we do expect to see a number here that we can check back on, but we recognize that if there's a yes or a true here, that there really is no valid information that you could provide some of this demographic information on, and it will allow you to bypass some of those fields. Be sure once you've completed both of these tabs to save this record. Otherwise, it will not retain the information. And at that point, you can go back to the edit list or move on to the next record that you might need to edit. In that student aid screen, there are lists of the programs for which we collect unit record data. And in the unit record, all of these are listed vertically. I've shown them here horizontally only because there isn't space on this slide to show them vertically. But these are the programs for which we are currently collecting data. And along the top, you will see all 5 of the term categories. And you would make sure that each of these are completed either with a 0 here or with a change to the enrollment status, depending on which terms they've been enrolled in. Another item that might come up in this discrepancies report is a situation where you have Social Security mismatches. And one of the indicators of that is if you see the same student name, but different Social Security numbers, often the award amount is the same for both of those individuals, but one will show up in the unit record and the other one will show up in Seesaw. In that event, those do need to be resolved and merged if they are indeed the same student. And how you go about doing that does depend on whether the error is in the unit record itself or if it's in the Seesaw record. If the incorrect Social Security number is in the unit record, that's fairly simple. All you do is go to the search screen, pull up that student's record, and make the correction in the Social Security number field directly and then save it. On the other hand, if the incorrect Social Security number is in Seesaw, that will require assistance from WASAC staff to correct. And the way you do that is to click this send an email button, And that will open up a secure portal email, and select the unit record as the addressee. And in the body of that email, indicate which student has an incorrect Social Security number, what the correct Social Security number should be, what the incorrect Social Security number is, and where we would find that, whether it's in Seesaw or in the unit record. Once you send that to us, we'll alert our IT staff and they will make that correction for you. If indeed the correction is needed to be taking place in Seesaw, once that correction is made in Seesaw, it will resolve the unit record edit and clear it from this report. So once you've addressed all of these, you're ready to click to continue. Or, as I said, if you need to return to the edit list to either add individuals or address other edits, that opportunity is here. At this point, you're very close to the point at which you can submit your unit record. This is the institutional totals report, and it is a 4-year comparison of dollars and numbers of recipients. So an item to point out is this percentage change is actually looking at these last 2 columns. It compares the 2019-20 information with the 2020-21 that you've just submitted. And if there is a large change here that it isn't apparent what may have taken place, you will most likely receive a call from either Marla or I asking for an explanation. Sometimes there is an instance where we recognize, say with this COVID, there's been a large change in the way the student populations have persisted over the last couple of years. And so we may, expect to see large changes within the 2 years, but we may still give you a call to check on that. The other thing I want to mention is we ask that you create a PDF of this page for your records at this time. As I mentioned, it is preliminary information. And the reason for that is once we have finalized and closed all unit records across the state, we then go in and we eliminate what we call extraneous data. And those are records where the student has not received at least $1 of need-based aid or federal loans. And so those records are eliminated. Sometimes, not always, it will make a big change in this 2-year comparison. So we ask that you make a copy of this preliminary one and that you go back in January after we have released the institutional profile reports and make another copy of this. As we're going through the reviews, sometimes, as I said, we will contact you if we see a big difference. Occasionally, that is a pattern between the preliminary reports and the final reports in January. And if you have copies of this, then that can be used sometimes to explain those changes. And so we encourage everyone to make copies of this report at both stages so that you have records of that. Once you've done a final review of this information, and you feel that everything looks correct, you can click to continue, or once again, go back to that edit list and make additional changes. If you click to continue, it will take you to the final page where you can submit your unit record report. There is a caveat. that if you submit your unit record report, once it's been submitted, you are unable to go back in to make further changes without assistance from WASAC staff. And so you will get a pop-up that reminds you of that. Once you click the OK button, it will close your unit record for further edits. And at that point, you will see a change in the status here where it says submitted up in the upper right-hand corner. In this left-hand corner, you'll also see indicator that it has been submitted and by whom and what date. You can at this point download copies of these top 3 reports. Once again, it's that institutional totals report, your demographic reports, and if you want a copy of what's remaining in your differences reports, you can do so at this point too. You can also log out at this point. You're able to go back in at any time between now and the time the unit record is refreshed for the next year in order to pick up another copy of these program totals reports, the demographics, and the differences reports. These last 4 that are shown on this page do appear active in January of 2022 after we have done a final close of the unit record and eliminated all of that extraneous information. But these will all appear and be available to you by clicking on the unit record and selecting the reports option through the point at which we refresh for the following year. Once we refresh, these go away, these top 3 reports go away, but these other 4 will continue to be available to you. And I think at this point, I'm turning it back over to you, Becky.
Yes, just wanted to remind everybody that if you need assistance or help with the setup for unit record report in FAM, running any of the jobs, correcting errors, and downloading the CSV file, please email our legacy support desk at support@sbctc.edu, and we'll be happy to help you.
Okay.
Anne?
Just a reminder that the unit record report manual is available on the WASAC website on the unit record page here at this URL. And that both Marla and I are available to help you at any point in this unit record process. We appreciate calls for assistance early in the process, if possible. Things are easier to reopen or to make changes at that point. We suggest if you have questions to contact us through this unit record at wasac.wa.gov mailbox. That is because both Marla and I monitor it. So if one of us is out for the day or unavailable, the other of us will check that and be able to get back to you right away. The other thing to point out is that we are available by contacting us direct. Our phone numbers have changed. We no longer have the 753 numbers. And so we have listed here the new and updated contact information. Our email addresses, our personal email addresses are also shown here, and those have not changed. At this point, before we close, I'd like to ask if there are any final questions before we sign off.
Yumi had a question, but Becky answered it and it's all good. I
Oh,
didn't see any others.
okay, very good. I think at this point, we want to thank you for your time and for your attention to this final training webinar. As I said before, both Marla and I are available and happy to help you. Please, please, please contact us if we can be of service in any way. And we will be looking forward to receiving your unit records and working with you over the next several weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.